between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila and Thailand. Hello, Esther.
Hi there, Alma, and to all our viewers. I'm Esther Adanga from Thailand Bureau, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. An American journalist jailed for 11 years by Myanmar's junta is humble, positive, and inspired by George Orwell's writings against authoritarianism, according to his colleague, as he faces a second trial for sedition and terrorism.
Because all our family are putting prayers.
The sister of a Malaysian man facing imminent execution despite concerns he is mentally disabled has pleaded with Singapore to give him a second chance.
And some 100 public schools nationwide reopened to learners for limited in-person classes, months since they were shuttered last year due to the prevailing pandemic.
And visitors take photos of a giant inflatable sculpture by American artist KOZ in Singapore, despite the exhibition's closure due to legal dispute.
First in our news, an American journalist jailed for 11 years by Myanmar's junta is humble, positive, and inspired by George Orwell's writings against authoritarianism, according to his colleague, as he faces a second trial for sedition and terrorism. Danny Fenster, who had been working for local outlet Frontier Myanmar for around a year, was arrested in May as he tried to leave the country to see his family. Last week, a court inside Yangon's insane prison sentenced him to 11 years for unlawful association, incitement against the military, and breaching visa rules, charges his lawyer and the U.S. government say are unfounded. Danny was always one of the most positive people in the room, according to Andrew Nachamson, Fenster's friend and colleague at Frontier Myanmar. He said he doesn't need to be the center of attention. He doesn't need a ton of credit. According to Nachamson, who left Myanmar in April due to fears of his own safety. Fenster was happy working behind the scenes as Frontier's managing the editor, he said, shaping and finessing the copy of local journalists that had earned the outlet a respected reputation. And he fears the worst is yet to come as his friend prepares to go on trial for terrorism and sedition. Fenster's arrest on May 24 sparked outrage among press freedom groups and raised fears the junta was heading back to the censorship, intimidation, and propaganda during previous military regimes.
Thai Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha takes over APEC chairmanship from New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, with the latter passing the Maori Waka paddle to Prayut over video call as a symbolic gesture for Thailand to steer the APEC ship in 2022. Take a look.
Kia ora ท่านนายกรัฐมนตรีอาร์เดนและทีม APEC นิวซีแลนด์ขอแสดงความยินดีในการเป็นเจ้าภาพ APEC 2564
ไทยจะขับเคลื่อนให้ APEC พลิกวิกฤตเป็นโอกาสในการเปลี่ยนผ่านไปสู่โลกยุคหลังโควิดที่ยั่งยืนและสมดุลและทุกคนมีส่วนร่วมผ่านแนวคิดเศรษฐกิจชีวภาพเศรษฐกิจหมุนเวียนและเศรษฐกิจสีเขียวหรือ BCG Economy ไทยจึงได้กำหนดให้หัวข้อหลักของการประชุมคือเปิดกว้างสร้างสัมพันธ์เชื่อมโยงกันสู่สมดุลหรือ Open Connect Balance 1. การส่งเสริมการเจริญเติบโตที่ยั่งยืนและครอบคลุมโดยมุ่งสร้างความสมดุลระหว่างเศรษฐกิจสิ่งแวดล้อมและสังคม 2. การอำนวยความสะดวกการค้าและการลงทุนซึ่งเป็นหัวใจสำคัญของความร่วมมือใน APEC และ 3. การฟื้นฟูความเชื่อมโยงโดยเฉพาะการเดินทางและท่องเที่ยวเพื่อช่วยฟื้นฟูเศรษฐกิจจากผลกระทบของโควิดการประชุมแรกของ APEC 2565 ที่ไทยจะเป็นเจ้าภาพจะ จะจัดขึ้นที่จังหวัดภูเก็ตระหว่างวันที่ 1 ถึง 3 ธันวาคมนี้ และจะมีการประชุมอื่นๆกว่า100 การประชุมในภูมิภาคต่างๆของประเทศเปิดรับการเดินทางได้อีกครั้งและที่สำคัญสามารถจัดประชุมเอเปกแบบพบหน้ากันอย่างเต็มรูปแบบหลังจากที่ต้องดำเนินการผ่านระบบการประชุมทางไกลมาตลอด 2 ปี
Setting the theme as Open, Connect, Balance, the 2022 meeting will first be held in Thailand's biggest island of Phuket from December 1 to 3.
Meanwhile, Pacific Rim leaders agreed to cut tariffs on COVID-19 vaccines at the virtual summit on Saturday. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern announced in the press conference. The annual Asia-Pacific Cooperation or APEC summit brought together leaders from 21 member economies, including U.S. President Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping, in a bid to chart a path to pandemic recovery. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said the group discussed an economic reset in the wake of the coronavirus crisis. Take a look.
Congratulations on a successful host year.
We've just concluded the APEC Economic Leaders meeting. It is clear that APEC leaders are determined to work together to defeat COVID-19. We are focused on driving a coordinated economic response to the biggest downturn in 75 years, creating new models of economic growth that work for all and responding to climate change. Firstly, we put APEC back on a stronger footing. As we recover from this crisis, we have the opportunity to reset. That is why leaders decided to set out a plan for APEC's work through until 2040. Secondly, this year, APEC has demonstrated that trade is a force for good. APEC has rejected vaccine nationalism and lowered tariffs on vaccines. We've got vaccines moving across borders more quickly, and no APEC economy has introduced export restrictions on vaccines since trade ministers met in June. Thirdly, APEC has made progress on climate change and sustainability. Particularly, we have agreed a plan to halt an increase in fossil fuel subsidy use, which already costs the world hundreds of billions of dollars a year. Well, of course, as APEC economies, we would welcome the ongoing bilateral dialogue between APEC members, of course. And as I welcome some of the more recent resolutions that we've seen from COP26 in that regard between the United States and China.
The APEC summit was held against the backdrop of growing competition between the United States and China, the world's top two economies and region's preeminent military powers. With tensions between Washington and Beijing building over Taiwan, human rights and trade, Biden and Xi are set to hold a virtual meeting on Monday, according to the White House. Take a look.
On Monday evening, the president will meet virtually with President Xi Jinping of the People's Republic of China. The two leaders will discuss ways to responsibly manage the competition between the United States and the PRC, as well as ways to work together where our interests align. Kind of what our strategy has been to date. I mean, this meeting is coming after 10 months of President Biden taking action so we can outcompete China in the long term. And that means investing in ourselves at home to strengthen our own competitive hand. It means working with our partners and allies to make sure we have a united approach and a coordinated approach as it relates to engagement with China and work together. So I would see this, Andrea, as more of a continuation of that intensive diplomacy, given that we believe intense competition requires that. And I wouldn't see this as I wouldn't set the expectation, I should say, that this is intended to have, major deliverables or outcomes.
And does he plan to bring up the COVID-19 origins with President Xi, given he has said that China has been blocking investigators from getting access to information that's critical to that?
That is a remaining concern, and there will be a broad range of topics that will be discussed, and the president's certainly not going to hold back on areas where he has concern.
Relations between the world's two largest economies have recently deteriorated, in particular over Taiwan, a self-ruling democracy claimed by China, which last month made a record number of air incursions near the island. Washington has repeatedly signaled its support for Taiwan in the face of Chinese aggression, but the United States and China reached a surprise agreement on climate at a summit in Glasgow. Besides its position on Taiwan, China also claims almost all of the resource-rich South China Sea, through which trillions of dollars in shipping trade pass annually, rejecting competing claims over Brunei, Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Vietnam. Against the backdrop, the United States, Britain, and Australia announced in September that they had formed a new alliance known as AUKUS Alliance, under which Australia will acquire nuclear-powered submarines using U.S. technology.
Hundreds of protesters rallied in Bangkok against a decision by a top court that ruled calling for royal reforms amounted to a bid to overthrow Thailand's ultra-powerful monarchy. The Constitutional Court, which critics have long said is politicized, announced on Wednesday that 3 prominent protest leaders had made speeches that aim to overthrow the constitutional monarchy. While the court's decision doesn't result in criminal penalties for the protest leaders, observers say the ruling could shrink an already narrow space for activists campaigning for reform of the monarchy. Take a look.
It's not normal for a constitutional court to make a decision that criticism is treason.
I would say sorry, but I have to say in a regular country it wouldn't happen because it's a lie. So first, the Constitutional Court also doesn't have any legitimacy because it comes from the coup and it was appointed by mainly the military, Prayut.
Absolutely wrong. I totally disagree because what the students are arguing is reasonable, absolutely reasonable.
Defying a ban on gatherings, hundreds of protesters assembled in Bangkok's main shopping district to rail against the decision, holding signs that said they don't want an absolute monarchy. Protesters flung effigies of the Constitutional Court's judges off a bridge and later burned them, while a small group of saffron-robed monks flashed a 3-fingered salute for democracy. Police briefly clashed with some demonstrators, firing rubber bullets which hit at least one protester who was bleeding from his chest, according to an AFP reporter on the ground. The injured man was rushed into an ambulance. The city's Erawan Emergency Center said at least 2 people were injured, though no details were given about their condition. By nightfall, protesters had marched to the German embassy, a commentary on the king's frequent stays in the European country. They submitted a letter to the embassy expressing concerns about a return to absolutism, and the rally dispersed soon after. King Maha Vajiralongkorn flew to the country this week, according to German media, his first trip abroad in over a year.
Meanwhile, the sister of a Malaysian man facing imminent execution despite concerns he is mentally disabled has pleaded with Singapore to give him second chance. Nagentran K. Darmalingam, sentenced to death in 2010 for trafficking a small amount of heroin into Singapore, was originally set to be hanged last week after losing a series of appeals. Take a look.
Because all our family are putting prayers that something miracle will happen for my brother, that he can get the sentence to jail. So we hope, we are very happy that that day Nagin will come out and suddenly they give judgment that Nagin going to be hang sentence. So that moment we can't accept it, and very painful, sir. Normally I will ask, please spare my brother from the gallows, and then at least can get a second chance to life, that he get the jail sentence. Of course, no worry, we are still praying for my brother that everything will be okay. Everything will be get a good news from the Singapore government that he won't be executed, and give him a second chance for the jail.
Nagendran's case has sparked a storm of criticism, with the European Union and the United Nations rights experts speaking out against it, and a clemency petition getting around 85,000 signatures. A last-ditch court challenge is being mounted, and while chances of success looks slim, Sarmila and her family are holding out hope. Nagendran was arrested aged 21 as he tried to enter Singapore from neighboring Malaysia with a bundle of heroin weighing about 43 grams, equivalent to about 3 tablespoons, strapped to his thigh. Campaigners say he has an IQ of just 69, a level recognized as an intellectual disability, was coerced into transporting the drugs and was struggling with an alcohol problem at that time. But Singapore, which insists the death penalty is an effective deterrent against crime, has shown little sign of heeding call for clemency. The Home Affairs Ministry said earlier this month that psychiatrists had stated during previous court proceedings that Nagendran was not intellectually disabled. Legal rulings also concluded that he clearly understood the nature of his acts, which were aimed at paying off debts. It said in a statement. A written appeal from the Malaysian Prime Minister Ismail Sabri Yaakob was also brushed off, with his Singapore counterpart Lee Hsien Loong responding that Nagendran had been given full due process under the law.
In other news, an outspoken Cambodian union leader jailed for comments about the country's border was released on Friday after a court reduced his sentence. Rong Chun, the leader of the Cambodian Confederation of Unions, was arrested and jailed last year after accusing the government of irregularities over the demarcation of the eastern border with Vietnam. Activists at the time said he had been targeted as part of Premier Hun Sen's crackdown on opposition voices. As he left jail on Friday evening, Rong Chun, who denies the charges against him. Take a look.
ជំហររបស់ខ្ញុំអត់រៀបថយទេបើសង្គមយើងនៅតែមានការរំលោភសិទ្ធិមនុស្សសង្គមយើងនៅតែគេថាការរឹតបន្តឹងសេរីភាពសង្គមយើងដែលមិនបានយកចិត្តទុកដាក់ដល់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋដល់កម្មករដល់គ្រូបង្រៀនយើងនៅតែធ្វើកិច្ចការងារសង្គមបន្តទៀតហើយខ្ញុំនឹងបន្តបេសកកម្មរបស់ខ្ញុំបន្តទៅទៀតពីព្រោះយើងឃើញនៅក្នុងសង្គមកម្ពុជាយើងប្រឈមមុខទៅនឹងការគ្រោះថ្នាក់ណាស់បើសិនតែយើងមិនចូលរួមធ្វើការកែលម្អហើយអ្វីដែលខ្ញុំបាត់ការដែលឃុំខ្លួនខ្ញុំហើយកាត់ទោសឲ្យមានទោសវាជាការបំបត្តិនៅសម្លេងខ្ញុំមិនត្រឹមតែប៉ុណ្្នឹងទេវាជាសារមួយគម្រាមកំហែងទៅដល់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋបញ្ញវន្តគ្រូបង្រៀនកម្មករយុវជនកុំឲ្យហ៊ាននិយាយការពិតទៅដល់ថារដ្ឋាភិបាលដែល
Rong Chun was detained in July and sentenced to 2 years in jail in August last year. An appeals court on Friday reduced his prison term to time already served, according to his lawyer Sam Sok Kong, with the remaining sentence suspended for 3 years. 4 other activists who were jailed over protests demanding his release will also be released. The comments for which Rong Chun was jailed involved a newly agreed borderline between Cambodia and Vietnam, which the activists said encroached on some locals' farmland. The territorial dispute has long been a lightning rod for controversy, fueled by strong anti-Vietnamese sentiment in Cambodia. Opposition activists accuse Hun Sen of ceding territory to Hanoi in a bid to whip up nationalist feeling against him. Hun Sen is one of the world's longest-serving leaders and has been in power for 36 years. Meanwhile, the number of poor people in Thailand is expected to increase to 15 million. We have an update coming in live from Thailand. Here's Veronica Carino. Veronica.
Yes, Alma, good afternoon. The impact of the prolonged COVID-19 outbreak caused the number of poor in Thailand to increase to 15 million next year from its current level of 14 million, according to Deputy Finance Minister of Thailand, Mr. Santi Prompat. The ministry will open a new round of registration for state welfare cards early next year, and the criteria for who is eligible to be card holders will be revised. Mr. Santi stated that the ministry anticipates that the number of poor people who will be eligible for the cards will increase by 1 to 2 million in this new registration round. There are currently 13.65 million state welfare card holders. Thais aged 18 and up are eligible to receive the cards. Their annual income cannot be more than 100,000 baht. In this latest round, existing card holders will also be required to register. The ministry is developing new criteria to screen people who are eligible for the state welfare cards. Currently, the criteria only consider their income and ownership of specific assets, such as land plots. The ministry may add another asset to the list, such as a car. The ministry will collaborate with other state agencies to investigate assets ownership. The cabinet will be asked to prove the new criteria. Mr. Santi went on to say that the ministry will also consider the average household income of prospective card holders in this new registration round. In one household, the husband earns a high salary while his wife earns nothing. This means that the wife is eligible for the card. In this new registration round, any family member with a household average income of more than 100,000 baht per family member per year will be ineligible for the card. This update is from Bangkok Post. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you very much for that update, Veronica. Looking forward for more. Stay safe.
Yes, Alma, thank you. And likewise, reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand, I am Veronica Carino, and we live in interesting times.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. ASEAN in Focus. We'll be back.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot-kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Welcome back. Indonesia on Sunday confirmed 339 new COVID-19 cases, raising its tally of infections to 4,250,855. This is according to the country's health ministry. The ministry reported that the death toll from the virus in the country rose by 15 to 143,659, while 503 more people recovered during the past 24 hours, bringing the total number of recoveries to 4,098,178. Indonesia started mass COVID-19 vaccinations on January 13 after the authorities approved the emergency use of the Chinese Sinovac vaccine. More than 130.28 million people have received their first doses of vaccines, while over 84.16 million have taken the second doses. Indonesia has administered over 215.63 million doses, including the third booster jobs. The Indonesia government aims to vaccinate 208.2 million people in the country.
Meanwhile, there were 1,723 new COVID cases in Singapore on Sunday, down from 2,304 a day earlier, according to the Ministry of Health in its daily report. The COVID-19 weekly infection growth rate dipped slightly to 0.97 from 0.98 on Saturday. The number refers to the ratio of community cases in the past week over the week before. A weekly infection growth rate that is consistently below 1 shows that the number of new weekly COVID cases is declining. Singapore's total number of COVID deaths now stands at 586. The new infections comprised 1,651 cases in the community, 66 in migrant worker dormitories, and 6 imported cases. Sunday's community cases included 307 people aged 60 and above. The total number of cases in Singapore is now 237,203.
Some 100 public schools nationwide reopened to learners for limited in-person classes Monday, 20 months since they were shuttered last year due to the prevailing pandemic. In a statement, the Department of Education, or DepEd, welcomed the learners, teachers, and personnel participating in the pilot in-person classes, which will run until January next year. We are thankful for everyone who supported the key phase in our safe return to school advocacy, from the planning stage since 2020 to this monumental day, it said. We are grateful to the assistance of the Department of Health, the IATF, child health experts, local government units, international and local partners, school personnel, parents, and other stakeholders for reinforcing our shared responsibility framework in this critical undertaking. The implementation of the pilot run coincides with the start of second grading quarter of school year 2021 to 2022. After January 31, the agency will evaluate the implementation of the program and present a report to President Rodrigo Duterte. The DepEd said it recognizes the significance of face-to-face classes in the social development of the learners. In the coming months, more learners in public and private schools would be allowed to participate in face-to-face classes, as Duterte has approved to increase the number of schools for the pilot run.
Staying in the country, the Philippine National Police, or PNP Chief General Leonardo Carlos on Sunday said the Administrative Support and COVID Task Force, or ASCOFT, is doing its best to convince unvaccinated police personnel to receive their vaccine shot against COVID. This after the latest PNP Health Service data shows that 2,284 more PNP personnel remains unvaccinated without valid reason, while 859 others have valid reasons for refusing to get inoculated. The PNP, through our Administrative Support and COVID Task Force, Marcos wishes that all our personnel avail of the vaccines, and we are doing our best to convince the PNP personnel to get vaccinated, Carlos told the Philippine News Agency. According to the PNP Health Service, some 207,030 or 91.75% of the 225,000 PNP active personnel have been fully vaccinated against COVID. The data also showed 6.85% or 15,462 have received their first dose. As the number of active cases in the country continues to drop, Lieutenant General Joselito Vera Cruz said allowing non-contact sports is now being considered inside Camp Crame. The PNP on Saturday logged 12 new COVID infections, bringing the total active cases to 182. It has also reported a total of 41,781 recoveries after 17 additional personnel have recovered from the disease that has so far claimed 125 lives in the PNP.
Meanwhile, Catanduanes will be placed under Alert Level 4 beginning November 17, Malacanang announced on Saturday. This after the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases approved the new alert levels that will be implemented nationwide. The Interagency Task Force approved on Saturday, November 13, 2021, placing Catanduanes under Alert Level 4 effective November 17, 2021 until November 30, 2021. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said in a press statement. On the other hand, Alert Level 3 will be implemented in Baguio City and Siquijor from November 15 to 30, Roque said. He added the provinces of Batanes, Quirino, and Nueva Vizcaya, as well as cities of Isabela and Zamboanga, will also be under Alert Level 3 from November 17 to 30.
Staying in the country, on-site and transport workers are now required to get vaccinated against COVID-19, according to Malacanang on Friday. This developed after the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases approved several measures to ramp up the national COVID vaccination drive, according to presidential spokesperson Harry Roque. Let's listen in.
Bilang pagsunod po sa direktiba ng Presidente at para tumaas ang demand ng COVID-19 vaccination, inaprubahan po ng inyong IATF ang mga sumusunod na measures na mag-take effect simula 1 po ng Disyembre ng taong ito. Kabilang dito ang pag-require ng mga establishmento at employers sa public at private sector sa mga lugar na may sapat na supply ng COVID-19 vaccine na magpapabakuna ng kanilang eligible employees na nasa on-site work. Sa mga eligible employees na hindi bakunado, maaaring hindi sila matanggal sa trabaho dahil lamang sa rason na hindi sila bakunado. Pero kinakailangan nilang mag-undergo ng regular RT-PCR testing or antigen test at their own expense. Kailangan fully vaccinated din ang eligible workers na nasa pampublikong transportasyon para magpatuloy ang kanilang operasyon. Maaari namang tanggihan ng public and private establishments ang pagpasok o pagbibigay serbisyo sa mga nananatiling hindi bakunado o sa mga partially vaccinated kahit na sila ay eligible naman for vaccination. Hindi kasama rito ang mga frontline at emergency services na tuloy-tuloy ang assistance sa lahat regardless of vaccination status. Para lalo pang mapataas ang pagbabakuna, hinihikayat ang mga lokal na pamahalaan na maglabas ng mga kautusan o mga ordinansa na nagbibigay incentives para sa fully vaccinated individuals. Para naman sa business establishments, maaari silang mag-require ng proof of vaccination bago payagan ang mag-individual or entities na mag-undertake or mag-qualify sa ilang activities. Isa pang measure ay hindi pagmarka ng absent sa lahat ng workers na mababakunahan sa oras ng trabaho basta magpakita lamang ng proof ng confirmed vaccination schedule. Kaugnay ng lahat na ito, tanging medical clearance na galing sa Government Health Office o birth certificate ang magsisilbing sufficient at valid proof of ineligibility for vaccination. Hinihikayat din ang mga ahensya ng pamahalaan na magpapatupad ng mga measures na nagbibigay prioridad sa fully vaccinated individuals availing of government programs and services.
The IATF-EID's approval of several measures to further step up the immunization campaign against COVID came as the government intends to hold a 3-day vaccination program dubbed Bayanihan Bakunahan Day from November 29 to December 1. The government is targeting to inoculate at least 15 million Filipinos during this 3-day national vaccination drive.
In other news, Bangladeshi migrant worker MD Sharif Uddin used to spend his days off with friends outside his cramped Singapore dormitory. But coronavirus curbs have more 18 months left him stuck inside during his spare time. More than 300,000 migrant workers, many of them from South Asia, live in dorms in the prosperous city-state where they typically packed into shared rooms and sleep on bunk beds. Watch this.
যত দিন যাচ্ছে যে 1 বছর হয়ে গেল এবং আমাদেরকে যখন একটা অ্যালাউ করা হলো কাজের জন্য, কাজে যাওয়া আসার জন্য, শুধু অন্য কোথাও যাওয়া যাবে না, জিনিসটা এরকমই একটা গৃহবন্দী ভাবে থাকতে হবে, শুধু কাজ করতে হবে আর ফিরে আসতে হবে। তো আমাদের কিন্তু আস্তে আস্তে এই পেইনটা কিন্তু শুরু হলো, যে আমরা যেটা ভাবছিলাম যে হয়তো আমরা আমাদের জগৎটা হয়তো আমরা স্বাভাবিক জগতে আমরা ফিরে যাব, বিশেষ করে যারা ডরমিটরিতে থাকি আমাদের জন্য কিন্তু প্রথম থেকে এখন পর্যন্ত যত দিন যাচ্ছে আমাদের প্রতি কিন্তু সরকার থেকে তত চাপ বেশি দিচ্ছে আর কি।
I come here in Singapore, also a lot of place I'm travel, but right now we cannot totally not do this. So there's the things I really miss, that we not freely to go out anywhere. So we cannot visit anywhere, cannot enjoy ourselves, cannot be that's the most painful for us.
And the news continues here in ASEAN in Focus after this short break.
Hi, I'm Alex Calleja, isang podcaster, YouTuber, writer, director, at isang stand-up comedian for more than 12 years. Ang sarap maging komedyante sa Pilipinas, no? Dahil paborito ng mga Pinoy, pagsaluan ang mga nakakatawang eksena sa paligid. Pero dahil sa pandemic, ang kulitan, naging online na lang. Naranasan mo na ba to? Ginising ka ng nanay mo para tanungin lang kung anong oras ka gigisingin. Pero masaya talaga pag sabay-sabay tayong nagtatawanan sa mga videos na gaya nito. Eto pa! Eto pa! At ito pa! Kaya naman, heto na ang funniest Snackable Videos, ang natatanging show na bubusugin ang buong sambenan sa katatawanan. Ito ang bagong tambayan ng buong pamilya at barkada. Mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes nyo kami makakasama tuwing 4:30 p.m. Dito lang sa Net25. Dito, mapapanood natin ang best comedy videos na hinanap pa namin sa kasuluk-sulukan ng internet. So ano bang hinihintay nyo? Join na sa pinakabago at pinakamasayang afternoon habit ng tawanan at kulitan, ang funniest Snackable Videos!
Visitors are taking photos of a giant inflatable sculpture by American artist Cows in Singapore despite the exhibition's closure due to a legal dispute. Take a look.
Public, and actually we have no idea what happened between the parties, so it's unfair to us, unfair to the fans of course. Yeah, that's why I think that the show should continue. Yes, because you see, I'm a father, I have 2 kids, right? So when I look at this, I just feel like, hey, come on, I know, because every morning, right, I'd like to hug my kids like this on the bed. Yeah,
we're kind of a little bummed because we thought we could get into the middle and like take photo with the companion itself. But yeah, we just make the best out of it. We feel honored that it's here because it has always been in Hong Kong and recently was in Japan with the Mount Fuji at the back. And he had an exhibit in Melbourne, so we've always tried and catch his art pieces, but we've never really gotten it. So it's really, we feel honored to have him displaying his artwork here.
The exhibition Cows holiday features artist Brian Donnelly's signature character companion, a mouse-like figure with crosses for eyes reclining in front of Singapore's skyline while cradling a miniature version of itself. The 42-meter artwork was scheduled to open to the public on Sunday, but the Ryan Foundation, a local nonprofit arts organization, obtained a last-minute court injunction to stop the exhibit from taking place. The exhibition was closed on Sunday, but fans still turned up to take photos and admire the artwork from behind barriers. The only ones able to get close to the giant sculpture were a family of otters who briefly climbed onto the platform where it lay. A Singapore court has ordered that the exhibition and the sale of merchandise be stopped as they were in breach of the Ryan's Foundation's intellectual property rights and involved the misuse of confidential information, according to the organization in a statement. Hong Kong-based organizer All Rights Reserved said in a statement that the accusations were groundless and added that the company will challenge the court order. Singapore is the 7th stop for the exhibition, following stops in Seoul, Taipei, Hong Kong, Japan, a trip to outer space, and the United Kingdom.
And the first ever Papua New Guinea Contemporary Arts Exhibition 2021 event kicked off and was attended by diplomatic corps, department and corporate heads and dignitaries and art lovers. Eco Hortaleza Quinola is at the scene.
The Papua New Guinea Contemporary Arts Exhibition is now open to the public. I am here at the scene in APEC Building, Port Moresby, to show you their artwork, art displays, and body art shows. Let's take a look. The first ever Papua New Guinea Contemporary Arts Exhibition 2021, which was hosted by the National Cultural Commission, or NCC, with its partner, the Tumbuna Visual Arts Association. It was conducted at the APEC House, Port Moresby, with the theme, Take Back Papua New Guinea Through Culture and Creative Industry. The event was attended by the diplomatic corps, department and corporate heads, dignitaries, and art lovers. National Cultural Commission's Executive Director, Honorable Stephen Kilanda, said that NCC is committed in developing and promoting arts and creative industry, but Kilanda cannot make it alone. He needs the help and support from the public and private sectors. He believes that culture and arts are vital platforms to build links between people and beyond borders. It will be an engine for economic and social development and will be a path for economic growth.
So this is the first one that the National Cultural Commission has taken initiative and partner with the Tumbuna Visual Arts, a group of artists. We will host with 4 regions, Momase, New Guinea Islands, Island region, and Southern region. So we'll have to put up 4 exhibitions. So we'll have to bring the best ones into Port Moresby, and we'll put up one at the end of the year. That's the biggest one. Local, good, very talented artists around the country, so we are not identifying them, and we'll have to discover their skills.
Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture, Honorable E.C. Henry Leonard, was pleased that the 3 agencies, namely Arts, tourism, and culture are working towards achieving visions through well-initiated cultural programs and activities. In addition to this, he also reiterated the importance of vaccination rollout in promoting tourism. This will attract inbound tourists to have more resources and budget for cultural events, especially that he is highlighting cultural festivals and domestic tourism.
Since day one, I've been advocating and elevating the status of the ministry. The first thing that I did was to promote cultural festivals in the country. That regardless of the COVID-19, we are still working in promoting our festivals and our events like this to promote tourism. So in my time as the minister, I tried to promote what we call domestic tourism. Even the fact that there won't be any more inbound tourists until we have established our what we call COVID-19 protocols, especially the vaccination. PNG is one of the last frontiers where culture is still vibrant, where people still practice and live in the traditional cultural ways.
The guests and visitors were amazed and inspired by the array of intricate paintings and designs of these talented and blossoming artists of Papua New Guinea.
Well, you know, usually we used to go to the craft market every Saturday, and this is the first time, as Stephen was saying, that we have the opportunity to sit in these good settings, and this is absolutely amazing. And this will help for sure the artists.
Yes,
thank you.
Reporting from this world-class and iconic designed APEC building, Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, this is Echo Hartaleza Quinola, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Esther, for keeping me company today.
Thank you also, Alma, and special shout out to Brother Vilen Regalado and to all our viewers there in Thailand and all parts of Southeast Asia. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian region. Thank you for joining us today here in ASEAN in Focus. I'm Esther Odanga from Thailand Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
Thank you for watching po, Brother Willen. Hello po sa inyo. Thank you for watching. We'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.